안녕하세요. Thank you all, dear Professor. Thank you so much for giving me this chance to discuss about Ethiopia's history and its international role. It's my great honor to be here among you at this prestigious university, and it's my great pleasure to discuss and give a public lecture at this university. Thank you so much again for giving me this chance. As I mentioned, the topic of my briefing is about the Ethiopian ancient civilization, Pan-African leadership, and the global diplomacy, which starts from Aksumite Empire to modern peacekeeping. Of course, the topic is broad, but I'm going to give only briefs and highlights on each step, taking back you where Ethiopia was and how it looks and what is international affairs and the future plans or future aspiration about it. This is the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia. This is an official name, no? Ethiopia is commonly called as the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, just like that Korea is called as the Republic of Korea. It's only to highlight, as I mentioned about the topic. My presentation includes background about Ethiopia, to know what Ethiopia looks like, where it's located, its population, its total area, and overall its setup. The second one is Ethiopia's role in international affairs, so Pan-Africanism aspiration, as well as its role in international affairs. And finally, we'll see the historic Ethiopia-Korea relationships. So to start about the background about Ethiopia, Ethiopia is located, is found in Africa, and East Africa, commonly called Horn of Africa. Its boundaries like Eritrea in the north and Djibouti, northeast, Somalia in the east, Kenya is in the south, Sudan and South Sudan in the west. So these countries are neighbors of Ethiopia. Of course, Eritrea was Ethiopia until 1991, and after getting its independence, Eritrea now is a sovereign Ethiopian neighbor country. All the mentioned countries neighbors Ethiopia. Official name, as already mentioned. The total area of the country is about 1.1 million square kilometer, which is estimatedly about 10 times of the size of the Korea, because the Korea size is about 100,000 square kilometers. So Ethiopia's size is 1.1 million square kilometer, a big country, and it's about 5 times of the size of the United Kingdom. Maybe it's more than the size of Spain and France combined. Its population is about 126 million. This estimate is based on the 2023 data. The projection of 2024 indicates the total population is over 130 million. This makes Ethiopia the second largest populous country in Africa, next to Nigeria. Nigeria is more than 250 million people, so it's a very the large country in Africa. So Ethiopia is the second largest country in Ethiopia. It's not only large population. The Ethiopia's population is mostly the young, with the median age of 90 years. So you can imagine that how the labor force availability there, being most of the population is young. So these times we may have about 30 million population in the schools, starting from kindergarten to university. It's almost about 30 million student population. So you can imagine how young Ethiopian people is. when we talk about this history, just I wanted to take you back to Aksumite. Ethiopia is a land of origin and it's the world's oldest civilization. Remarkable monuments like Fasilides, Lalibela, and Aksum, Harar, these monuments indicates how Ethiopia was old nation in the world. The powerful states, Aksumite, which was between the Roman Empire and Persia, very strong state that takes back to between the Roman and the Persia Empire. This Aksumite is from the 1st century to 8th century, and it's one of the Africa's the earliest Christian kingdom. And it's a major trade hub and home to the Ark of the Covenant legend. That's why Ethiopians consider themselves as descendants of the King Solomon dynasty, and it's believed that the Ark of the Covenant legend is found in Ethiopia and it's kept well. So we can understand from this that how Ethiopia is a very ancient and a powerful and civilized state in Africa as well as in the world, taking back to that of the Roman and Persia Empire civilization. These are the monuments like Aksum, which I have mentioned. This one was built around 330 years, between 3rd and 4th century, 330 years. And the monument is a very historic for the significance of the civilization and the significance of its religion. The Aksum is the center of the Christianity as well as of the set of the government, the civilization during this 4th century, and it was built from the single material. This design is done by the humankind. It's not like today's civilization of technology, you can imagine. It's from the single object, and its height is about 24 meters or 79 feet. So it's a single object which is decorated with if you look at very closely, you will find the windows, door, which is not actual door window, but it was made like windows and door to view from the far. So you can imagine, you can see that how it was the remains of the civilization at that time. Actually, this monument was taken by the Italian invaders 1896, and it was came back 2005 and erected as this time. You can see this fallen material because of this destruction was during the Italian invasion to Ethiopia, which was defeated at Adwa battle. We will see later on that Adwa battle. So you can see this very old and civilized the remains of the civilization. This one, so Lalibela, which is rock heaven churches. This church was built around 12th century and 11 in the number, and it was built from the stones like this with that time human civilization. So this indicates also the Ethiopian civilization. This place is significant for the religious. It's a part of the pilgrim. It's still this alive, and many tourists visit this place, including from the Korea. This is a Fasilides. This was also the set of the government, which was built during 17th century, around 1636 years, and still this is alive. And it was the set for the king Fasil. And this indicates also such kind of civilization remains of Ethiopia. This one is Harar Jugger. This is one of the ancient remains, and it's estimated it was built around between 7th and 10th century, like that. So this was built to protect this ancient city. This is a center where the Christianity, where the Muslim protects itself from the invasion, and it's a very ancient, and still this was there. By the way, the monuments I have mentioned, the three, and these both are the tangible resources of the UNESCO heritage now, so registered as tangible resources. The Christianity was introduced in the 4th century, and Aksum, as I mentioned, is known for to be a center for Christianity and civilization. Lalibela, which I was mentioned, 11 rock heaven churches, and the significance of these 11 rock heaven churches of the Lalibela connected with the religion. These churches of the Lalibela and the Solomonic dynasty claim to descend from King Solomon and the Queen of the Sheba. So, the king of the Ethiopia, His Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie, which was the king before the Dark Empire, the Dark dictator government, considered himself as a descendant of the god, because he's considered himself as a descendant of this Solomon dynasty. So that's why Ethiopia is considered as a land of the Christianity, because it was mentioned in Bible maybe more than 40 times. And the great river of the Ethiopia, Abai, which is called as a Gion in the Bible, as source from Ethiopia. Blue Nile is originated from Ethiopia. So that's why Ethiopia is considered as mentioned in the Bible many times, and also considered the descendants from the Solomon dynasty. Ethiopia is also considered as a land of origin and as a diversity because of that, the recent human remains, which is aged like 3.5 million, was found in Ethiopia in 1974. What makes this human remains, which is called Lucy, different from the other findings of the human remains, is that this exactly looks like that of the current Homo sapiens. This is the woman remain. That's why it's called Lucy, and the remains and the skeleton is protected and found in Ethiopian museum until now. So we believe that all of us, all of you, including you, sometime descended from Ethiopia and spread out of the world. So that's why Ethiopia is considered as a land of origin. The other feature of Ethiopia is Ethiopia's diversity. Ethiopia has over 80 ethnic groups with their own culture, their own language, and their own cultural practices. You can find us. This indicates that Ethiopia's mosaic of the ethnic groups with a different. You can imagine that the type of the dressing and the type of the hair making, and also the kind of beautification, which differs from ethnic group to ethnic group. So you will find different kinds of the styles there based on their ethnic origins. And the language is also there, and also the cultural cuisines are there, different kinds of the cultural cuisine preparation. So that although we are more than 80 a number of the ethnicity, Ethiopia is united and unified. The languages are different, but we do have common languages as official language like Amharic, and Ethiopians communicate each other using this language. We'll see later about that. The other version is that Ethiopia has its own calendar and its own alphabet. As I mentioned, Ethiopians have different languages, like as mentioned, more than 80 languages. But we do have a common language, that's Amharic, which is official language, together with other official languages. This Amharic language is written using the alphabet, which is drawn from the Ge'ez, which is a biblical alphabet or language. So Amharic is one of the official language, which is quite different from other African languages, which uses the Latin alphabet as alphabet. So Ethiopia is the only African country to have its unique alphabet, just like the of Korea has Hangul, which is different, unique. No, it's not Latin based. So it has its own language. Like this is these are the alphabets. You can see this one is unique from the Latin alphabet. Originally, we know that the Bible was written in 3 languages: Hebrew, Greek, and I think you know that Hebrew, Armenia, and Greek. Yeah, the 3 languages. The first language, among the first language that the Bible was translated is Ge'ez. That's Amharic is drawn from the Ge'ez alphabet. So this the Amharic alphabet is the modern version of the Ge'ez, an updated version of the Ge'ez, and that makes Ethiopia the only African country with its own alphabet. The second one is the calendar. So Ethiopians follow their own calendar, which is different from the Gregorian calendar or from the other calendar, which is it's year and date is different. No? Totally, Ethiopia has about 13 months of 13 months, 12 months with equal 30 days, and the remaining 5 days, because we know that the universally there is 365 days in the year. So this 365 days in the years organized like 30 days of 12 months, each equal, which makes 360, and 5 days of the leap year, which is called Pagume in case of the Ethiopian, and that total maybe 5 days and 6 days in the 4 years, making a total of 365 days in the year. That's why Ethiopia is considered as 13 months of sunshine. In terms of the year also, Ethiopia's year is 7 to 8 years back from the Gregorian calendar. For example, when we consider this year in terms of Ethiopia is 218. It's a back of 7 years, that's 225. And in terms of date is also 2 days, I think it's 2nd of October, and it's 22nd of the month of the September. It's not September, it's called Meskaram, and it's 22. So we can see from here 10 or 11 days back from that of the Gregorian calendar. So if you are in Ethiopia, you are considered 7 years younger than where you are from here. So we are back 7 days or 7 years or 8 years back from the Gregorian calendar. This makes Ethiopia unique to follow its own calendar. In terms of landscapes, it's very dramatic and very varied landscapes with 120 meters below sea level, like Danakil Depression, and to that of the height of 4,553 meters above sea level in the area of Ras Dashin around northern parts of the Ethiopia. So its landscape is very diversified, up high hills and down below sea level, and a central plateau mostly lies and between 2,000 and 3,000 meters above sea level, and its capital, Addis Ababa, is around 2,300 meters above sea level. So you can enjoy very diversified landscapes, very astonishing and very touching beauty of its features. Ethiopia has almost about 15 UNESCO registered heritages, among which 4 are intangible. Tinket, Fifani, the Fiche Chambalala, Gada system, and the Mescal. Mescal was a celebrity about the finding of True Cross, which was celebrated last September 27 in case of Ethiopia, and also we had celebrated it at Chunchen last September 28. These 4 are intangible, and the others which I have previously mentioned, including Aksum, Lalibela, Harar, and Semen Mountains, Bali Mountains, and the Konso landscapes. These are tangible, and all of about 15 UNESCO registered heritages. This indicates Ethiopia is a land of diversity with numerous heritages and ancient civilization. This monument is already I've mentioned, or this indicates about tourist size and dramatic landscape, including Ethiopia Great Run. And Ethiopia is also well known as very famous athletes. Koreans may remember Abebe Bikila, barefoot runner at Tokyo, maybe long times ago, and also with middle and long distance runners, very known legends like Haile Gebrselassie, Kenenisa. There are 2 women runners. So this indicates now it's becoming a very famous great run in Ethiopia. The huge attracts different visitors. So it's among one of the heritages we are considering it. Addis Ababa, as already I mentioned, is located at height of 2,300 meters above sea level, consisting historic churches and mosques, different kinds of tourist attraction sites. This is a new development is there. So when we talk about Ethiopia, we cannot skip about coffee, because Ethiopia and coffee is really inseparable. Ethiopia is the land where coffee Arabica originated. Now, commonly we have coffee Arabica, coffee Abyssinica, Robusta, and so on. But coffee Arabica is originated from Ethiopia. When coffee Arabica is called like coffee Arabica, most people consider that this coffee comes from Arabia countries. It's not. Why it's called coffee Arabica? Because Ethiopian coffee bean, the first coffee bean, is taken from Ethiopia, and then it was taken to Yemen through Arab traders. Then it's grown there commercially and spread from Yemen to Middle East, from Asia to Asia, to Europe, from Europe to Latin America. So this is the way how the coffee was spread from Ethiopia to the world, coffee Arabicas. Ethiopia is known for its very excellent quality coffee brands with unique flavors like coffee Yirga Cefe, Sidama, Harar, Jimma, Limu, Geisha, Kafa, Bunda, coffee, and so on. So this is the brand and a very well-known flavor of the coffee, and the most loved coffee in the world, with its highest price than other coffees, the brand based and sold on a premium base in the world. As unique flavors like chocolatey, spicy, caramella, you can find different kinds of the flavors based on the geographic differences, based on the location differences. The flavor of the Ethiopia coffee is unique, So it's rare to find the poor, real, unblended coffee here in Korea. Most shops when we visit will find the blended coffees of the Ethiopia with other coffees. So Ethiopia coffee is very well known. To give some brief about how it was found in Ethiopia coffee, we can talk about a dancing goat, the goat which found the coffee. To give some proof about the coffee discovery, one day the herder, who is called Khalid, on the way of taking the flocks of his goats to feed and to take them somewhere, he realized that the goat eats some bushes, some beans of the bushes, and then he started realizing that the goat feels little bit different ways than eating other bushes or other trees. He tried to observe this repeatedly when taking the goats around that bushes. And when he carefully observes what's going on, whenever the goat feeds on the fruits of that specific bushes, it delights uniquely and became very fonded. Then he started to take that bean and taste it. Immediately he feels similar delightness from that bean. And then he took that bean to the monarch around there and show. But after looking about its features, the monarch declined to use this at that time. But through time, the people started this bean as just taking this as one of the most energizer that makes people delight from the goat. So it is through the goat's discovery, also goat's feeding, that the bean of the coffee was found. That's why the coffee, the dancing goat indicates the discovery history of the coffee. This is how people enjoy coffee in Ethiopia. By the way, coffee in Ethiopia is not beverage. It's not merely beverage, but it's a part of our social and cultural ritual. Having a coffee is a must for the guest when the guest visits. We can see this the former foreign minister, Park Jin, while he visits Ethiopia, is enjoying coffee with our foreign minister and deputy prime minister, the former one, Mr. Demeke, enjoying the coffee in his office. This is how the coffee is. This is a red cherry. It's a process it takes time to see like that. So the preparation is really very interesting. Its preparation by itself indicates how the socialization of the coffee culture is very familiar in Ethiopia. So it's our custom, our social custom, and it's a part of our social activity. So whenever the guest comes, it is a must to invite to have a cup of coffee. So inviting a guest to have a cup of coffee is a symbol of dignity, acceptance. Now coffee is the known commercial product for us. Ethiopia earns from the coffee export more than $2.5 billion yearly, and it's widely used as a beverage in Ethiopia. This is Ethiopian airline, which is connecting Africa to Asia, which is the best African airline and the topest African island, and the only African line flying directly from the capital of Ethiopia, Addis Ababa, to Incheon, almost 6 days a week, almost a week we can say. So it's a passenger, and in terms of the cargo flight, also almost 3 or 4 cargo flights weekly flying to Incheon. Not only Incheon, but many Asian countries, including Tokyo, Narita, Hanoi, and the 4 or 5 cities of the Beijing, Manila, Jakarta, Kuala Lumpur, and so on. So we can say this Ethiopian airline flies almost all of the continent where people are, including Latin America, North America, Europe, and Australia. When it comes to second agenda, Ethiopia's role in international affairs, Ethiopia is considered as a symbol of sovereignty and a symbol of anti-colonialism. When we talk about Ethiopia's role as an international diplomatic hub, we cannot pass talking about Adwa, which is a significant and magnificent battle of the Ethiopians, where anti-colonialism struggle started. It's a victory of against Italian invaders. 1896 make Ethiopia the only uncolonized African country, a nation. The significance of the Battle of the Adwa is very unique. It's considered as a diplomatic leverage as well as military win. So it made inspiration, served as an inspiration for global black liberation and movement. So this puts Ethiopia as a center of Pan-Africanism. It's a diplomatic hub and the center of Pan-African leadership. The Battle of Adwa ignited anti-colonialism in Africa, and many African countries started struggling against colonialism following the defeat of Italian forces by Ethiopian during this battle. Ethiopia is a center of Pan-Africanism and is a founder of African Union, which was African Organization of Africa Union that was established in 1963. And since then, Ethiopia has been serving as head of Center for African Union. So it's one of the center and one of the igniter of the movements of the African independence. Ethiopia has given moral and material support for liberation movements, including training of NC fighters of the South African anti-apartheid fighters, backing decolonization in Algeria, Congo, and beyond. Even the anti-apartheid struggler Nelson Mandela was trained in Ethiopia at Holeta by Emperor Haile Selassie. So you can imagine that how Ethiopia was important for African liberation movement. Emperor Haile Selassie was a leading Pan-Africanist and advocating for African solidarity at the United Nations and supporting decolonization. And specifically his Excellency's speech of 1963 regarding Africa with Africa Must Unite title remains very iconic for African unification and becoming together. Ethiopia is a founding member of the League of Nations of 1923. So the only independent African countries to join League of Nations 1963 is Ethiopia, the only one. It's the first African member advocating for collective security against fascist aggression following the Muslims' invasion of Ethiopia in 1935. So we can say that Ethiopia is among the pioneers of the formers of the League of Nations, and it remains influential in the regional security and stability, including fighting Al-Shabaab and other terrorist groups in Africa. And largest peacekeeping force in the continent starts not only in Africa, but out of Africa, including Korea and so on. And it's a gateway due to its strategic location, bridging west and eastern part, and serving as headquarters for Africa Union, United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, and also European Union Commission for Africa and many regional organizations. So this is all about Ethiopia's role as at a global stage, and also as Pan-African advocator. When we move to Ethiopia-Korea relationship, the relationship between Ethiopia and Korea is very historic, and that relation started following the Korean War. During the Korean War, Ethiopia is the only independent African countries to send troops to fight for Korean peace and independence. Of course, South Africa had sent troops, but at that time South Africa was under apartheid. It's not an independent country. That makes Ethiopia the only independent country to send and participate during the Korean War. In 1951, the KOICA battalion arrived to Busan, May 6, 1951. The battalion was come to Korea 3 rounds. It's not 1 round. And the total amount of 6,037 soldiers participated. Sometimes regarding number, if you Google or if you find, the number is different because of, it's not only one time that the Ethiopian battalion came here, 3 times, So mostly the first time, only the first time considered as total number, but the 3 turns or 3 rounds, about 6,037 soldiers participated during the Korean War. Why did Ethiopia participate in the Korean War? Most people ask me because Ethiopia is very far away from Korea. It takes 12 hours almost flight, maybe 6 or 7 days through ship, and it's about 40,000, more than 40,000 kilometers from here to Ethiopia. First of all, Ethiopia should respond to the call of the United Nations, because as a founder of the United Nations, Ethiopia should take into consideration to respond for the call of the United Nations. The second one and the most interesting one is that Ethiopia's principle of maintaining sovereignty of each nation, because it had experienced through the bitter struggle against Italian conquerors. So that initiated Ethiopia to send the troops to Korea. It's the principle of the collective security as exemplified by Ethiopian battalion. This, as I mentioned, then during 1935, when the Italian Mussolini comes again to invade Ethiopia, the League nations could not respond for this invasion. That made Ethiopia very angry, because Ethiopia was pioneer to form a League nation, but if League nation could not able to respond, that was very, very strange and very upset Ethiopia. So starting from that time, Ethiopia considered to stand to take firm action against colonizers. So that's why Ethiopia has continued support for collective security. And when North Korea invaded South Korea, Ethiopia responded quickly and sent this KOICA battalion. The troops that was sent to Korea is not ordinary soldiers. They are very unique. They were very unique soldiers, the elite Imperial Guard members, which carefully selected and trained to fit this geography and landscape, and also the weather conditions. So they are very elite, and the name indicates KOICA. In Amharic, when we try to translate to Amharic, it indicates that make observation, quietly observe and make decisive attack. The name for KOICA, just very careful observation and make decisive attack. So they were fit for this geography and for the purpose. among 6,037 soldiers, none of them were missed. So they are very well known for bravery fighting, as they fought 253 battles, and it's known to win all of the battles. They won all of the battles they fought, and 122 killed and about 536 wounded. None of them imprisoned or missing. This is well known under Koreans, how they are brave fighters and how they did very brave job during the war. After the war, these soldiers who lived for some while in Korea also organized orphanage center to support those who lost their families and supported in Korea. And also for reciprocity, the Koreans has reciprocated by building different schools and supplying different supports, educational supports, including scholarship for Ethiopians, Korean War descendants to support the descendants. The formal relation between Korea and Ethiopia was established in 1963 after 10 years of the Korean War armistice. Since then, numerous agreements and MOUs done on economic, social, and cultural sectors. And the Korean government has established different kinds of structures in Ethiopia, like KOICA, KOTRA, and KOPIA to support Ethiopia's development activities. And we can say that the relationship between Ethiopia and Korea is a very positive and continued in this way. Agreements and MOUs done. This is the recent agreement with the previous Korea leadership. During Korea-Africa Summit last year, 2024, June, our Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance and Economic Cooperation with the Minister of the Korean, $1 billion financing framework agreement was done. Apart this, many activities, supporting activities like education, water supply, and health, agricultural mechanization, and so on, with the support of the Korean government. And many Ethiopian students are also beneficiaries of the Korea Scholarship Program. This was His Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie, 1963, with President Park Chung-hee, 1968. The late Prime Minister Meles Zenawi with Korean President, maybe 2011, I don't know, you can remember, 2011 this is. I know quietly because I was minister this time and I welcomed the president, also I didn't know his name. This is also President Park with the Prime Minister Haile Mariam, ex-Prime Minister. This is Prime Minister Excellency Dr. Abiy Ahmed with Yoon, President Yoon. So these are, thank you very much. This is the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Learn about Ethiopia as an ancient civilization and the home of Lucy, the 3.5 million years old, our grandmother, found in Ethiopia. Maybe Ethiopia was a Garden of Eden. Adam and Eve was walking around, who knows? 근데 어쨌든 이티오피아라고 하는 나라가 우리들이 생각했던 것보다는 더 ancient civilization이고 또 하나 저희 배웠던 거는 never been colonized. 식민지를 경험하지 않았기 때문에 그런 면에 있어서 이티오피아가 아프리칸 컨트리 안에서 리더십을 발휘할 수 있는 중요한 이유가 never been colonized 됐다는 그런 자부심도 있고 또 하나는 1948년에 유엔이 만들어졌을 때 대부분의 아프리칸 컨트리들은 독립되지 않았는데 이티오피아만 유나이티드 네이션을 참석하는데 만드는데 공헌한 나라이기 때문에 아무래도 아프리카에서는 그 인터내셔널 폴리틱스나 릴레이션에 있어서는 가장 중요한 역할을 하고 있다고 우리 대사님께서 말씀하셨습니다. 그리고 지금 아디스아바바가 AU, 아프리칸 유니언의 헤드쿼터가 있는 곳이기 때문에 상당히 아프리칸 폴리틱스에서는 이티오피아의 롤이라고 상당히 중요한 것이고요. 또 하나는 그 말씀하신 것 중에 하나가 팬아프리카니즘, 아프리카를 한데 묶으려고 하는 그런 노력들이 이 이티오피아를 통해서 일어났던 것도 배웠던 것 같아요. 또 하나는 저희가 리캡을 하다 보면은 코리아, 이티오피아 코리안 릴레이션십에 봤을 때 Ethiopia helped Korea first by sending more than 6,000 troops, 3 times. And he mentioned that, unlike other countries probably, the elite of elite military was sent to rescue Korea. I think the way they helped us 1950 and 1953, I think that sets the tone of our relationship between South Korea and Ethiopia, Ethiopia and South Korea. I think we all consider ourselves as a blood brothers and sisters of Ethiopia and Korea, Korea, Ethiopia. I think that form a strong partnership relationship. I think as our young, can I include myself as young? But anyway, young people, I mean, their population, the median age is 19. As I mentioned it before, when you become leaders of this country, or when you become leaders of the global society, you are going to meet many, many African, your colleagues. Many of them would be from Ethiopia. Yeah. So I think this is projecting our future right now. So I think if you have any question, 여러분들 대사님한테 질문할 거 있으면 뭐 질문, Korean, English, French, American,
welcome.
whatever you have 질문할 거 해주시고 사실은 어쨌든 Ethiopia as an ancient civilization and also is an ancient Christian nation. And home of Musi, origin, never been colonized, the leader of the African countries, and Pan-Africanism, very independent, and helped us, Korea, so much, so that we could become this. So I think we need to have some kind of collaboration between South Korea and Ethiopia, and especially young people from both countries can form in some solidarity together spirit, because we are brothers and sisters in blood.
Yes, thank you, blood brothers.
Blood brothers and sisters. So, 질문 있으면 해주세요. If you have any question regarding Ethiopia and beyond this lecture, if you have any question about Ethiopia and Korea, any African politics and African relationship.
같은 재화를 생산을 하더라도 아프리카 국가나 그런 개발도상국이 더 저렴한 인력으로 더 낮은 비용에 생산할 수 있다는 장점이 있습니다. 특히 그 개발도상국에는 풍부하고 질 좋은 노동력을 바탕으로 해서 선진국보다 생산량도 더 늘릴 수도 있고 시장 균형 가격이 더 저렴해가지고 소비자들에게도 큰 이득일 것입니다. 하지만 선진국이 이미 시장을 캡처하고 있기 때문에 현재 아프리카 국가가 해당 재화를 생산하는 시장에 진입하려면 초기 비용이 시장 균형 가격보다 크기 때문에 시장에 진입하기가 어려운 것이 현실입니다. 그렇다면 아프리카 국가의 시장 진입 부담을 낮추기 위해서는 어떤 제도적인 장치가 필요하다고 생각하십니까?
First of all, thank you very much for your lecture. And you mentioned that Ethiopia is positioned as possessing a leading role in the discourse of Pan-Africanism with AU in the center. I was wondering what is Ethiopia's vision of Africa moving forward to the future? Would it like to see further integration of the African Union into a body that is even more economically and politically interconnected? Or would it rather prefer first prioritizing development, even though that might mean some division within the continent of Africa? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Professor. Thank you the questions. Africa as a whole is a continent with a huge labor force and also huge natural resources. Africa not only has such a resources, but Africa is a continent with a promising future, with a total population of 1.3 billion, and also with a total GDP of 3.4 trillion US dollar. You can imagine how Africa is a promising continent. In terms of resources, Africa has a very important resource for our future development, specifically for semiconductors. We can see that the most important resources of the cobalt, nickel, are very important for battery production as well as semiconductors found in Africa. No. So we can say that Africa is a huge labor forces and also that of the huge potentials. As asked, what the future or what makes Ethiopia, Africa to use such benefits of the major market sources is one of this huge potential. Of course, Africa is behind in terms of infrastructure development and also transparent leadership. Ensuring transparent leadership is very important for Africa. As Africa uses are vibrant and can change the fate of the world. You know? Imagine USA. Who built USA? This Africa uses. No. Europe, who? Africa uses. You can imagine it. So still Africa has a potential to take benefit of a major market through its resources. Although this time it's exporting majorly raw materials, there is a capacity to build manufacturing industry in Africa with its huge resources. That's why we have been encouraging Koreans to take advantage of these resources. No? Let's grow together. Let's prosper Africa together and Korea together. So shared prosperity is very important for Africans. So if we could able to combine the technology and expertise of the countries like Korea with the huge labor forces and natural forces of Africa, we can make prosperity together, shared prosperity that one. So the summit is like the previous year, 2024, which I believe that creates a good opportunity for the continents with the Korea collaboration to take the advantage of this potential. So, of course, some African countries have an advantage of sending raw materials and taking advantage of the major economies, like, for example, as I mentioned, Ethiopia's coffee is trading all around the world, and the gold, the cobalt, and the oil of the DRC, Angola, many Western Africa countries and Central Africa countries. You can say that Africa does not lack resources. The only issue is that of the lack of technology, expertise, and transparent leadership. This is a critical issue. So if we could able to change the status of Africa's the transparent leadership, and if we use the expertise and the technologies of the Koreans and the like-minded countries, we can take an advantage of the major economies. In terms of Ethiopia's aspiration or leading role Pan-Africanism and African leadership. Of course, we believe that African Union, previously it was Africa Organization of Africa Union. Africa Union is much more integrated economically than the previous organization. And what Ethiopia believes is that it's important to build economic integration rather than building physical integration. That's a very important issue. So to this end, African Union launched African Free Continental Trade System that integrates Africans and economically. So that economical integration makes easier to come to unite and to be one voice. So the first issue should be economic integration and infrastructure integration. Integrating Ethiopia with Kenya, integrating Ethiopia with Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, and then continuing this integration towards south and to west to Central Africa. So if we could integrate the infrastructure as well as economic integration, making a free continental trade system, that makes Africa to prosper and benefit its population with the resource and the growing labor force and growing skill, although we have to do a lot. So as pioneers of the Pan-Africanism, as promoters of African unity, Ethiopia believes through this economic integration that Africa become to unite.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. My name is Joshua. I'm from Uganda. I have just two questions. Thank you so much for the presentation earlier. My first question goes mostly about integration in the eyes of maybe an ambassador in your position. Last year, I had a conference in South Africa with my Korean professor, and Koreans don't require a visa to South Africa. I require a visa to go there, and it's really hard. They had to ask me for proof that my father is my father, and a very lengthy process that takes money, time, and a lot of energy. Now, I don't know if this is the right place to ask such a question, but are there discussions internally at the diplomatic stage among African countries that seek to take these boundaries away? And I think the biggest question that follows this one is, when do we decide to call ourselves Africa? And when do we decide to call ourselves Ethiopia, Uganda, Nigeria, all of these countries? Because when we come to Korea, people just call us Africans. I rarely hear a Korean calling me Ugandan. All they know is we're from Africa. Yeah. And I usually take pride in it. Some people don't like the fact that they're being called Africa because we have 54 countries or so. Now, I think from a diplomatic point of view, are there boundaries to Africa? Are there boundaries to being called a single country? And are there discussions internally that seek to make sure that Africans can travel freely? The AFCTA has been signed already, but definitely you've heard about Kenya blocking products from around the countries. So I don't know if there is a little bit of an opinion there. My second question is about mostly countries like Korea taking advantage of the African resource base, human resources and maybe material resources. I don't know so much about the agreements that have been signed so far, but the word taking advantage, I've heard it. I listen to Korean a lot, and I've been to so many different places where we're discussing this thing about Korean SMEs and companies taking advantage of the African market. To what limit is this advantage being measured? African interests being secured in the process of receiving this kind of investment, because some of these countries are, super aged economies, where the future will rely so much on, not only imported manpower. Korea doesn't allow Africans to work in semi-skilled environments. Is there such discussions where interests of Africa can be advanced, maybe at some cost of some resources, but are there such kinds of discussions at the diplomatic stage where you sit? Thank you so much.
Thank you for excellent question. Regarding the boundary restriction among African countries, you stated well. Of course, in my previous reply, I tried how to avoid barriers between African countries through economic integration. There was an effort before that, sometimes just to unite Africa, to consider Africa as one. Some leaders from Northern Africa countries just promoted to such unification, but it was not happened. That's why the better way to unite, to build a relationship between Africans is through economic integration is a much easier than that. That was what I was mentioning. To come to your question, Africans should avoid such boundary restriction for their movement. Not only boundary movement. Let's come to using of the currency, currency use. Ethiopians use birr, Kenya use shilling, but some others use their own currency, which is a very much disintegrated. 54 currencies in Africa. That is also one of the obstacles. In terms of passport, as you mentioned, 54 passports. So Africa, unless Africa solves such a boundary restriction and disintegration, it takes a time for Africa to grow. We have to make easier movement within Africans. To that end, some countries started visa-free movement for Africans, like Ghana declared already, like Kenya partially declared, Rwanda declared, and others also continuing that. What I believe as a diplomat, Africans should move freely among their countries in the continent. It should be boundaryless movement for Africans. So I hope that African leaders still are going to do that and will continue to do so, and will see a good result with a very short period of time. These times Africans became realizing that such obstacles of the boundary restriction, the movement, hinders overall African transformation. So Africans to grow fastly should reduce barriers inside the continent and should integrate economically, should integrate infrastructure. These are very important. So some initiatives already started. Ethiopia, for example, started to connect from Addis to Nairobi, then connect to that of the Uganda and also Tanzania, and so on, and then connect to South Sudan, Eritrea boundary. Then starting this way can connect all the countries. So if we do so, it's much easier for Africa to prosper and to come together. At that time, we will be one voice. Africa has to be one voice. With the disintegrated system, we cannot win poverty. We cannot win what we have, the problems like security issues. Africa should not be the level game for the security issues. Why? So this is what, in terms of this, if there is free movement, we can attract the major economies for us. We can attract the renowned and the well-known company from the Korea, from the Europe, from America, North America, or so on. Africa can be a market by itself. It's not only producer with a huge population. So you said, well, really, that's very important, and I believe too, and I hope that Africans will take this advantage and work on it. And thank you. Regarding the second issue, as mentioned, Africa has huge productive labor forces. So far, none of Africa countries have an agreement, labor exchange agreement with Korea. Korea does not have any Africa countries labor agreement. So far we couldn't export or send our labor force to Korea, whereas Korea has been suffering from labor shortages. No? So to this year, last year, we tried to request the Korea government to consider the labor exchange agreement between Africans as a whole, because we Ethiopia alone cannot do with Korea, because at a policy level, Korea so far does not have such an agreement, except that they do have Asia countries. So we commended that Korea should have considered this huge labor force. It's not only the quality of labor force South Africa is well known. It's easily trainable and it can make it disciplined. Africans can do the same they did for European, for North America to Korea. No? So even after training, after working here, they can back go to Africa and they can operate by themselves or jointly with the Koreans to operate their different kinds of enterprises. So I hope Korean government will consider our request. We have been pushing. Of course, I tried with some ambassadors last year to ask collectively, but it was not successful. Independently, we asked it, we requested, and also, unfortunately, yesterday, we African ambassador group held a meeting with the AU Commission on the consultative meeting of the framework of agreement and cooperation evaluation with African Union and Korea government. Exactly, we mentioned that AU should insist and discuss with the Korean government to make labor exchange agreement with the Korean government from Africa. So we'll continue on it. That's a very pressing. Most Korean companies need. They are asking us, African users, to come and fill the gaps of the labor shortage of the Korea. But as far as the agreement is there, it's impossible to formally you cannot exchange labor force. So I think it's a critical issue for us, and we are continuing working on it. And the African Union should also act not only bilaterally. Bilaterally we can do it, but bilateral alone is not enough. So collective action is very important to that end. Thank you.
What the Yonsei University is trying to do is that in the relationship with the ambassador just mentioned, forming a labor exchange program or agreement between African countries and Korea, I think Yonsei University is trying to set up an institutional relationship with African universities. So that actually last week, Yonsei University signed the MOU with the University of South Africa and the University of Rwanda. And then we just had over the lunch, the ambassador will try hard. Yonsei be connected to the University of Addis Ababa, one of the best universities in Africa, so that we could have a formal relationship. When I think what we're trying to do here at Yonsei University is a student exchange and faculty exchange. When that is happening from this side, I think the labor agreement with Korea and Ethiopia and other African countries can be easily optimized and followed. So I think we are. So I think for us, Yonsei University is very committed. The human exchange with African Ethiopia or African countries must come first, so that we could set up this kind of atmosphere for the need of the exchange of labor.
Thank you. Thank you,
So
Professor.
I fully agree. And it's yours.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. My name is Kabir Scott. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. I grew up in the Bay Area. I honestly have a good amount of questions, but I'll stick to about 2 or 3 that are pretty short. My first question is, as a nation that was never colonized, what is the largest issue that you see within, I guess, interpersonal relationships or maybe infrastructurally within Ethiopia? Keeping in mind like the context of capitalism and how that went into colonization and all these other things. So I'm kind of curious about that. I'm also curious about like what is the largest utility Ethiopia has to offer Africa, but also the world. Just from our other guest speakers, we've seen a lot of electronic development, biomedical engineering, all these sorts of things. And so I'm just curious as to what Ethiopia has to offer. And even if that's just, you know, minds, if Ethiopia has a certain mindset to offer. And that's essentially it. Just wondering about the effects or lack thereof of colonialism within Ethiopia and what Ethiopia has to offer for the future. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. So, as a non-colonized country, what benefits you have from being non-colonized? What experiences and what's shortcomings to? Yep. Now, being non-colonized is one of the source of the pride. You know, you build can-do attitude is a very important. You know, Ethiopians through the struggle developed resilience. Resilience. What will it be? We can win. This is one of the source of the resilience. I will give you the current example. For example, Ethiopia is a source of Blue Nile, you know. It's a source of a Blue Nile. And it contributes more than 85% of a Blue Nile water, over Nile water. But it had not used much until these days. What Ethiopians decided what the obstacle to use it was that of the resource constructing end on the one hand, and on the other hand, some question from the riparian countries who shares the Blue Niles. But Ethiopians united to come together and decide to build this dam by their own resources. Because due to some debates of the members of the Blue Nile and the riparian countries, it could not have resources from international funders, financial institutions. Just Ethiopia decided, just like the Adwa, let's unite and make it happen. And Ethiopians made it through with more than $5 billion US. All of the resources from domestic. You know? This comes from the resilience they built through anti-colonial movement they used. But on another version, sometimes people, you know, for example, when you take our neighbors, Kenya is under the colony of the British, and some Ethiopians consider that Kenya is better infrastructure development and different kinds of experiences, including language. For example, for most Africans, speaking English is a symbol of civilization. They consider sometimes, you know. Speaking English considered as a symbol of civilization, but actually in terms it's not. You know, language is a language. It's a common instrument for common understanding. You know, there is no such differences. You know, some people regret that if we were colonized, we could be able to speak English fluently or not like that. Of course, you can understand how people perceive this. But the most important gain that is Ethiopians got from this anti-colonial movement is that they built the resiliency, how to build resiliency, how to become self-sufficient. This is a very important lesson which we have got, and that served as a pride. And also, it's a pride for Africans, you know. It's a pride. After Ethiopians won the battle, all the Africans ignite for the movement. And after that, it has taken short time for the colonizers to make Africa free. We know that how colonization made Africa like this, you know. You can understand as a young generation, you have to know the pain of colonization. You know. That's why, even though it's a resourceful country, until recent days, Africa's resource was dominated by colonizers. Not to build Africa, but to build their own countries. That was it. Ethiopia, fortunately, didn't suffer from such kind of the resource grabbing. So we can say that can-do attitude, resilience, resource saving, these all are very important. Even though conflict is in Africa. Why conflict? Specifically taking consider Central and Western Africans. Why conflict? Very exists conflict. This conflict also has a root to the colonization. So we can say that the benefits are multiple. In terms of experience, in terms of such kind of infrastructure, you may regret, you may say that this and this, but that cannot equate with that of being non-colonized. It's much better than. What Ethiopia offers, of course, this the point which I mentioned was the best Ethiopia offers. What Ethiopia offers for the world is that independence is a very important. You know, this attitude, can-do attitude is a very important. You know. If you don't have can-do, what made Koreans to make this miracle within 50 years, less than 50 years? Because they built can-do attitude. They learned they suffered from colonization, they suffered from the consecutive wars, then they built can-do attitude. That made Korea very unique. Most of Africans, after they are free from colonization, it's more than 60, 70 years, you know. Around 60s, most of Africans are free from colonization, but it's still under poverty. But Korea from poverty, probably less than some of the African GDP during the 90s. Now it's advanced economy with this people population, not more than 50 million or around 50 million, and it's 100,000 area coverage, and of course 70% of mountains. Imagine 10th or 11th economy in the world, and cutting edge technology and advancement. This is a can-do attitude, no? So Ethiopians are very well known for their can-do attitude building. This is one. In terms of the resource, no, Ethiopians also have resources. Of course, this economy is agriculture-based dominantly. And coffee is, as I mentioned, we're proud of it. One of the best offer that we'll offer for the world is a coffee, you know, being the birthplace of coffee Arabica, which is excellent quality. And Ethiopia is well known by its coffee, well known by its top airlines, well known excellent athletes. It's not only Ethiopia, East Africa as a whole. And East Africa is our Kenyan brothers. We are well known to this. So in terms of development, as I mentioned, from agriculture, we are working on to become manufacturing-based economy. The fate of the economic development sustainability is on the manufacturing industry. So manufacturing industry is one of the key areas that Ethiopia offers for the investors to come and invest to tap the potentials there with a huge labor forces as I mentioned and a favorable investment, conducive investment environment and so on. Yeah.
Thank you very much. So far we heard about the history of Ethiopia, how it's original, how independent. They've never been colonized by any country. There was an attempt from Italy that they defeated them all. And I think Ethiopia is a sign and symbol of independence, never been colonized, refused to be colonized. And I think this is Ethiopia, what Ethiopia can offer to Korea and other countries, especially African countries, how to decolonize our mindset, I think. Whether it's humanities, whether it's culture, whether it's economy, whatever that be, how can we decolonize our mind? You know, still, there's a neocolonial policies very strong enforced in all of the African countries and Asia and all of the world. I think it is really imperative for us, South Korea and Ethiopia, stand together, raising a voice of independent mind. Yes, we can. Yes, sounds like Obama to me. But I think as an independent, we can do it together with a collaboration with Ethiopia and South Korea, especially as a university professor here. I think it is really, really important to foster a human capital development together with Ethiopia, South Korea.
Yeah.
I mean, as I mentioned, a lot of the companies and countries, they are looking for the resources on the ground, university. We are looking for the resources above the ground, the human capital development. How can we further this whole dangerous humanity into the future? Thank you very much. If there is a time, we could still continue, but there is a time we have to go to classes. Thank you very much for your very provocative, independent mind. As an Ethiopian, as a diplomat, you have been an inspiration for us all to learn.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.